Yeah, thanks for having me on the show, Jenny.
I didn't know you were West Australian born. All this talent here.
Well, I'm now residing here.
Oh, yeah.
I'm actually from over east, but
I've
been here for 10 years.
We'll take you as our own.
Yeah.
Your background is amazing. You were with orchestras until the year 2000.
Yes.
Yeah. Which orchestras were you with?
Well, I was living in Vienna where I'd been studying further after my degree, and this was back in the 90s, and I was in the Vienna Chamber Opera, and I was in the Johann Strauss Symphonia. There's a number of other smaller Baroque ensembles that I was playing in, Hillers 18. It probably wouldn't mean anything to people here much, but they were really amazing experiences, and as you would know, living in places like that, you learn a lot about history and you learn a lot about people, and to think yourself inevitably through that.
I mean, it's just so magnificent, classical music in those countries. You just have to be there to hear it differently, I think.
Well, the thing is, you're sitting there in the orchestra, and the person next to you, their teacher, would have played with Beethoven and Mozart.
Oh my gosh!
Because they were the local talent there. So, you're in a very rarefied environment. In that sense, that tradition is like living right with you there.
How magnificent! Now, apart from the classics, you've worked with people like Olivia Newton-John, Demis Roussos, John Farnham, Anthony Warlow. So you've got a little bit of popular music in you as well.
Look, I was a child of the 60s, and I've always been interested in a variety of music, and not only those things, but world music as well.
Yeah.
So I grew up when Mum and Dad went away in the 70s. My eldest sister, who was at uni, would take me up to would stay with her in the Carlton area, which is a student area in Melbourne, and she would take me to these exotic things I'd never been to with Mum and Dad, called Lebanese restaurants and Turkish restaurants. So I would hear all this music in these places. That's the point. Yeah. So get my falafel and whatever, but I remember all those sounds, and so all of that, and all the pop music and all the classical music. I think it all goes inside you like a library.
Music is music, isn't it?
Yeah,
it doesn't
absolutely.
Really matter when it was made. It stays with you from any generation, really.
And I think it speaks to the soul.
It does.
I've been researching human existence here we go back about 5 million years, probably almost recognisably 2.5 million years, but very much like we are the last couple of 100,000 years. Now, in that time, we haven't really changed a lot. Food, shelter, family, tribe, warmth, love, nourishment. That's all still there, the human soul. And I think the thing about music, it just speaks right in there. Yeah. And so, yeah.
I've often said, you have a baby, 18 months old, that moves to music. They haven't been taught, they just feel it.
Yeah,
don't they?
Absolutely spot on.
I just love seeing that. I just think it's just special. Now, what we have, of course, is the wonderful fact that you're here and going to be performing a free concert, in fact. It's for the arts season for Victoria Park. How innovative are they to get you here to do this?
Well, they've got a fantastic arts program.
Yeah.
They're really cooking down there. So it's obviously well funded and well thought out and well looked after and publicised. So we're really happy to collaborate with them and do this wonderful new work.
And it's on this weekend?
Yeah, this Saturday, weather permitting outside. Otherwise, we'll have Plan B. But it's going ahead.
It is definitely going ahead, and you're doing an hour from 2 hours, 6:30 to 8:30. Oh, how beautiful! Electrical violin. Why did you? Do you have an option? Do you do both? Or?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
I still do. I play all my own music really these days. So classical recitals and recordings, they've all been my own for the last 20 years. But with the electric violin, I can go into a lot of territory where this solo concert in the park, you couldn't do that with a little concert violin, because it wouldn't have, the wind's blowing, there's 500 people here, you wouldn't hear anything. So it allows me to play through a big sound system, and I can use all sorts of looping and effects, which I really love using, especially for the theme of this show, Cosmology, which is all about the life and the universe and the planets and where we are in all that, which is pretty small when you start to look at it.
Yeah, we're a dot, aren't we?
Yeah, yeah.
That's interesting to know that your philosophy at life and your music and your attitude to it is sort of all one, isn't it? You know, where it's all about the same thing, isn't it?
I think so. I think it's
Yeah.
about. I think it's all about. Really, it's about humanitarian values, you know. And I think in our modern day and age, that can get a bit thin on the ground. And I think music reminds us.
Yeah, it does.
That's why I love music.
It's a leveler, don't you think?
Yep.
It's a leveler.
And it reminds
Brings
us.
everyone together.
It reminds us who we are inside.
Yeah. Now, also you were sideman to stars such as the Beatles producer Sir George Martin. When was
Yeah.
that, and what was that?
That was
about?
back around the, when I came back from Vienna in about 1998, 99, 2000. Around then, I was doing those shows with Anthony Warlow and Olivia Newton-John and Sir George and of course Demis Roussos, who, you know, Demis. I grew up in Australia in the 70s, and Demis was everywhere because we've got a big Greek population over in Melbourne. So Demis was pretty popular in Australia, and for me, as a 13-year-old kid, it was really uncool. So I was into the Rolling Stones, and Demis was the big guy in the caftan. But I tell you what, when I got the call 25 years later, and I turned up to his apartment next to the Crown in Melbourne, and we had the rehearsals there, and did the shows. Talk about respect. That guy, he was an amazing musician. He sold 40 million albums.
Nothing to sneeze at.
Yeah.
So what role were you playing with these incredible people, the talented people? A solo piece?
Where some were solo. When they, a lot of it was where they needed a string section, a small orchestra section on stage. So I was working certainly in that capacity with Sir George Martin and with Warlow and Farnham and Olivia Newton-John.
Yeah.
Demis was really the solo one, where I was his pet violinist in the band, and so it was just a huge variety of experience. But I keep saying to people in interviews, look, they are big names, and it was, you know, a huge opportunity, of course, when you're young, to work with people like this.
Honor, yeah.
Absolutely an honour. But the takeaway for me, the music was a big takeaway, but they're special people. I mean, I worked with lots of people who weren't that nice too. We won't talk about them, but these people touch people's hearts, and they, like we were saying before, they remind us about something worthwhile. And those people, very generous-hearted people.
Yeah.
They were. Really
They're the stories you have to keep close to your heart.
Yeah.
Now, for people to find out where it's going to be held, and what an opportunity to actually hear you play on this weekend, the 14th of March, it's actually planned to be at the Taylor Reserve in Victoria Park. Where actually is that one? Is it down at the river?
It's next to McCallum Park.
Next to McCallum Park.
That's the big one that everyone knows.
Oh, we do know McCallum Park.
Yeah.
Okay. But what we're asking people to do is to make sure that they know where it's going to be. It could be indoors, or it could be there.
Look, we've got a 70% forecast for rain,
Yeah.
so we're definitely will be assigning an alternative venue. But you can register on Eventbrite, which is, you know, an online booking. Just look up Cosmology. It's all there. You register, and then if and when the venue changes, we just automatically notify you. And then you'll know to pop down the road, probably to Curtin Uni, to one of the big stadiums there.
You might be able to come in here, that's for sure. And it is an absolute free concert. It's absolutely magnificent. What a beautiful opportunity. So you're going to be moving on very soon from Perth? Or
No. The thing is, as a soloist, I don't have to be anywhere. I could live in Alice Springs.
Okay.
So for me, it's about being somewhere nice it's closer to Europe and than from the East Coast. So these are all factors in why I settled here. But certainly I will be continuing to travel this year, and I've got engagements in Europe and the UK later this year. And looking forward to concerts and conferences. Yeah, I'm also a music educator.
Oh, wow.
That's a whole other story.
All this talent in this studio, my goodness. I wish we'd had time, because we didn't have time to hear you play today, but people can go and actually see you at your concerts.
Yeah,
so
come on down. Yeah, it's going to be a wonderful show.
All the very best. I don't think you need luck. You've got that behind you, and talent.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you, Jenny. Thanks for having me.